it is 12 o'clock, all set with the technology?
Yep.
All right. Well, if we can call the meeting to order. And, Susan, are you Kristen today?
Yeah, I'm asking.
You're multitasking?
Kristen will no longer be with us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Her last day at, admin office is the 28th, and she starts out at the sheriff's office.
I had no idea.
Is that like now the career path for people? That's what Julie did too when she left.
Well, she went to the, prison.
Oh,
She's
okay.
gonna be over at the sheriff's
Sheriff's,
office, right, yeah.
Wow. Gosh, well, good for her, and sorry not to see her once a month.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, do we have a roll call? Ready to roll?
Mr. Egan,
I'm here.
Ms. Lasky, Jeff Dant,
Here.
Mr. Becker,
Here.
Ms. Goodman, Ms. Kaminsky. Here. Adam Dant.
Present.
And at this point in the agenda, I would like to welcome Adam to the board. Glad to have you come on board with us. It's the congenial group, and it's been a lot of fun. We get a lot done here, so
Good.
You'll enjoy it.
Great, thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay, the agenda was sent out to everyone. Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve it.
Or.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Public comments? Anyone online? All right. And that takes us to the minutes. You all received a copy of the minutes in the last week or so. Any changes, any questions? Where mine are. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes, yes.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, and that rips us right up to the treasurer's report.
Okay. Okay. I don't have this. I'm sure they're in my little packet that I printed off and sent to everybody. Okay. You can see there's the November 2023 accounts payable. I don't know if anybody had any questions on them. They're all pretty normal. We paid the insurance and also the McGinnis drain this round. But everything else is pretty normal.
What do we have, 2 more years on McGinnis, I think? Is that about right?
I think so. No questions? And then also, there was 2 things that we paid, out of the Fund 481. Radio install for the new truck, and then also heaters on the hangar.
The Cape Air.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just need you to approve the accounts payable, and then also the accounts payable out of Fund 481.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, and that'll be a roll call vote.
Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Lasky? Jeff Dant?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman? Ms. Kaminsky? Yes. Adam Dant?
Yes.
And we have something special here for capital improvement fund.
And then we also have the, financials. So we have we do those separate, we do the tables and then the financials separate. So,
We already did the capital improvement.
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
so then we have the
motion was for both.
November
Gotcha.
2023 revenue and expenditures. It shows the activity for November of 2023 and then also the activity for 2022. And then it's got the 2 months for the year-to-date to compare, and then it also is comparing to the, budget there at the end. If anybody had any questions on any of those.
Anything from anyone?
And then on the next page, we have the, trial balance. It's a snapshot when I did it as of in November, the 2023. So it kinda gives you a little the history of where you're at. And then I also have the, different 3 grants on the next page from the, county that I've been tracking for you guys, so you can see where you're at and what's left out of each one of those. And then that's it. Anybody had any questions? Mhm. Yeah, so you have 42,000 for the ting hanger, that's left, $9,900 for the environmental cleanup and equipment, and then $40,000 for the terminal and fuel system updates. So, not quite, maybe 100,000, but pretty close.
It's all up there.
It's all up there, yeah.
The committee will.
Yeah,
Right,
we'll
right.
talk about that in a minute here.
The details.
Yeah. But just so you know, when we get ready to go over all of that, this is where we're at,
Okay, thanks.
through my last account payable run that I had. Mhm.
All right, appreciate it. Questions? Motion to accept that report?
I'd make a motion to accept it.
I'll second that.
Can I get my, Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Lasky? Jeff Dent?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman? Ms. Kaminsky?
Yes.
And Alan Betts.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Executive committee didn't meet, but the capital improvements committee did meet a couple of weeks ago, and spent a good bit of time, in here. And we came up with a motion, you know, of all of these, and Barry can talk to this a little bit more.
Walk through that.
Yeah,
Or,
I can,
mean, if you want to.
I can cut to the chase, but
Well.
we can, let's do a little walkthrough of that.
Just a little bit of walkthrough.
Yeah.
So, this is prior to the
I have
last
a
check
question.
run. Yes.
Grant 1, is that the, T-hanger reimbursement? Grant 2, is that the environmental? And Grant 3, is that the terminal fuel?
I'm not sure because
Okay, I can
What-
tell, so
100,000 is
the 105 is Grant 2 then.
I've got the grant numbers
105
here.
is T-hangers.
So,
Okay, and then the 100,000, I just wanna, when I put it down on here, so.
so what I was gonna say is,
And it's
these
Grant
numbers
3, okay.
are prior to the last check run,
Yeah.
so the 2 things that we're
Okay.
through today aren't reflected here, so
Okay.
this balance is a little bit higher. But they're actually reflected here. So these are the original amounts of the grant. This is what was spent as of the last board meetings, last month's reports. This was the amount remaining for 106,000, remaining that we've committed to, well, this just got paid, so you can take that out. We've committed to doing this. This work is actually done, the invoice, check run. And then this is another project that we've paid 50%. The installation is still in progress. TKS seems to come one day every 2 weeks and do a little bit of work and then disappear for 2 weeks. That's the remaining balance in that. So what we've already committed to is another 32,000, which will bring us down to 74,000 balance remaining. For discussion at the end of this report will be an approval of LED lighting conversion for parking lots, all hangars. And then these are other things that we're tracking in various states. We did a carpet replacement earlier in this project, and the vinyl in the waiting areas is sun-faded. So we worked with Hokinson's to put together a quote to take the vinyl out and replace it with tile, so we don't have a...
Ag ones, but.
Yes, thank you. And they came back with a quote of 42,000. Of that, 30,000 was labor. Tile 2 areas, like, no. So, That's a no for right now. When we painted the T-hangers this summer, the gentleman who did that also gave us a quote to paint the truck barn, the old portion that's brown as opposed to everything else being blue. So that is something we could do. So it's up here. What is basically mostly outstanding is our fuel farm updates. So to kind of play back that, early this year, we approached our contractor and got a quote to update the system to self-serve. And the amount for that we rejected it because it didn't make sense to invest that much money into something that wasn't going to generate revenue and not really provide that much additional convenience. So we've been working with them since to get them back out here to provide an estimate on other items that were lower priority but potentially should be done. And they've not showed up a couple times when they said they were going to come out here. We're now at the point of calling them weekly to get them out here to get us something. There are 2 firms in the state that deal with airport fuel farms. Northern Pump used to be very good at being responsive. They've lost some employees, and I think they're just stretched way too thin. I know they do municipality work as well. I know the city of Manistee has had them on projects. I know Filer has got them on a project coming up. For whatever reason, they're not being responsive. At the conference in August, I met with the other firm, and they're actually in worse shape. They're down to 1 employee, the owner, and his wife, who works part-time doing bookkeeping. And in talking to consultants in the state, they said to avoid them at all costs, that will not do a good job, or there's risk involved there. So we had originally budgeted about $50,000 this item. With the $20,000 here that we'll look at approving later, that pretty much uses up what we have if we can move forward on this. So that's kind of what the committee talked about and where we stand.
So the fuel farm is not replacing tanks, it's just all the equipment.
There are 2 things we're asking for. One is, given the age of the equipment, and all that equipment is well over 20 years old, what is likely to fail and what is past its lifetime and should be replaced proactively? And then the other is, from a convenience standpoint, it would be nice if there was a mechanism of reading the meters here at the desk while we're doing billing, as opposed to always having to cell phone or relay in the amount, and also making the readers more visible, because right now, when they're fueling Cape Air, especially on the avgas pump, you can't really see the display from any distance. You have to have a second person out there at the meter while a person's at the aircraft fueling to basically say, okay, you got 2 gallons left, slow down, cut it off.
Yeah.
So those are the things we're looking at getting bids on.
We spent a good bit of time talking about that in the committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. And we decided to keep that $50,000 available for that gas pump, because if our gas pump goes down, that really puts us, I mean, we're just about out of business without
Depending
that.
on a truck to come in.
Yeah.
George, can you come out of retirement?
Sure.
It sounds like a great business opportunity if you want to start a fuel pump business.
Would Blarney Castle have any possible expertise in this to assist somehow, some way?
Potentially. I mean, I don't know how familiar they are with ATA 103, which is the regs for aviation, but they have all of the other skills, certainly, and it's just a matter of specifics as it relates to aviation.
it might be worth a ask. I mean,
Yeah.
if they could do some homework on that, if they don't have to go through some special certification to be able to touch something like that. 'Cause I
Right.
know how the FAA is about things sometimes.
This is something the FAA doesn't get directly involved in, they just point to the standards
Really?
and say,
Okay.
they're not experts at everything either.
Yeah.
So they just say, as long as it's to the standard, you know.
Well, Jeff brings up a good point, though, that if they can do that, that might be an explanation why the only two firms in the state are down to like one or two employees. It might be that other people are using
Are
more local type things.
Oh, there again, I mean, if you're out fueling up a pump, they can tell you whatever it is inside, they don't have to look outside to a gas
Right.
tank or a
Yeah.
Yeah.
meter out there.
The technology,
Yeah,
It's there.
it's old.
yeah. So anyway, I guess that's something that, I think that'd be a good project to look into and just ask them. All
Yeah.
they can say is no.
I will chase it up.
Over there,
Thanks,
so.
thanks. So what we came up with, though, was something we can do here, the, LED lighting.
You got a question first.
I'm sorry.
Does is there a practice of seeking multiple bids, for example, on the tile? Do you call multiple contractors?
That, if that is a project we move forward with, so let's say the fuel comes in and it's 20,000, and leaves us 30,000, then yes. So in general, and as we get into the LED lighting, that will be the topic of discussion as to what we have, what we're lacking as it relates to mobile. Generally, we're trying to get 3 bids. Sometimes it's not possible. So with that, you can actually, this is a good segue into,
Yeah, we actually did talk to a couple of different companies and got turned down saying that they didn't do commercial applications. So that's one thing we've run into with the flooring of all things. The lighting, though, we have one bid right now for the lighting. We're waiting on one more, two more?
so,
We talked about that earlier,
Yes.
so, okay.
yes.
So, we have a bid for that amount right there, $20,635.
Which is one of the things you should have.
Yeah, we passed around a copy of that. And, we talked about that for a good while, and, we make that recommendation. If anyone wants to, make that motion or talk about it a little bit beforehand.
Well,
The,
to clarify, I think the recommendation is that we've reached out to 2 other firms. One was out last week but hasn't gotten back to us with a separate bid. And the other, their estimator is on vacation until after the first of the year, so they won't be able to get us a bid until January.
Right, and that's why
So-
we're recommending up to that amount.
The recommendation from the committee is to authorize amount not to exceed the
Right.
bid we have. And once we get the other bids in, we'll go with the lowest bidder, so that we don't have to wait another meeting cycle
Mhm.
to get things approved, and we can move forward once those other bids come in.
So the next airport meeting is early, right?
It is,
January 8th?
second weekend, the second week
I
of
think it's January 8th.
January, I believe, yeah. Second Monday, yeah.
Would you have the information by then?
I doubt top line probably, they're not back until January.
Will we wait till we have 3 bids, or if we, approve 20,635 today and we don't have other bids, are you just gonna go with it?
I would bring that back to the board. My expectation is we're approving this, assuming we get other bids. If that doesn't occur, I would not move forward with just a bid without board direction to do so. Unless the board wanted to delegate that to the committee or something, it doesn't have to wait for a board meeting, but.
So we
Or
would
we c- or
approve
we can-
2635, and then you'd come back and ask again?
Or we cannot do any of this. This was actually Karen's recommendation, and she's not here.
Right. Right. Yeah, what we're talking about, what the committee was talking about, of course, you know, we were just a committee, was authorizing up to $20,635. If we get a lower bid than that, okay, there we go, but no more than that. So it wouldn't necessarily be a start from scratch, discussion. We know we can get it done for that. If somebody comes in with 15 grand, then, okay, they have our attention.
You're looking for a motion to approve the LED lighting out of grant money not to exclude 20,000.
Not to exceed.
$20,635.
That is the recommendation. But it does open up questions about, don't come in.
Well, you
It
can,
is-
you know, you can wait around for a
Or
year
you can-
trying to get a second, third,
Right.
fourth
Or you
of
can-
some of this stuff.
Right,
So,
right.
it's balancing different things, so it's really, you know, for the board to decide how they want to proceed.
A little bit of history on this lighting is, this lift down here was something we were considering, purchasing. And, we decided if we went to the LED lighting, that eliminates a lot of need for the lift that we've been having to rent yearly, to go around
Or multiple
replacing
times a
things.
year.
Yeah, multiple times a year. And so in addition, you know, just the cost of an LED light, versus the others. But again, the longer we wait, the chances are now we have to rent a lift to fix something out here, and so, I don't know. It seems like if we wait too long, we can wind up being here several months later, still talking about lights in the parking lot, so. But like I say, that was a recommendation from the committee, and, I'm the only one here who was at that meeting, so I'm kind of on the hot seat here.
And as Susan mentioned, our next meeting is actually relatively short,
Mhm.
really just after the holidays,
Right.
so.
Right, so you can do with this as you
No.
will, and this isn't a personal plea or anything. I'm just saying, the committee did meet, that was the recommendation. The board can do with that recommendation as you wish.
Is this estimate good for just a certain amount of time? You have to rebid it?
Joel hasn't indicated to me any specific time frame on it, so
Okay.
a reasonable amount of time.
It was a pretty recent bid, wasn't it?
10/14, so October 14th.
2 months, yeah. How soon would they start the work?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I would second that.
All right,
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Egan?
Yes, yes.
Lasky, Jeff Dunk?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman, Ms. Kaminsky?
Yes.
And Adam Dunn.
Yes.
Just to let you know, I've replaced, fluorescents in my basement with LEDs using the old fluorescent fixtures, and all you do is cut out the ballast and
Yeah.
wire them direct, but they have to be new enough
Right,
for that to be successful.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Bulbs are, that's a lot of money for LEDs, but there again,
Yeah,
it's, we're not running a farm operation here where I can go and
right.
put some duct tape on it and take care of it.
Yeah, I just replaced the halogen with an LED, and, yeah. All right, so Barry, that brings us to you then, because the budget committee did not meet, and that's it, I think, for the committee.
Yes, but I just want to comment on the budget committee. I believe the board's intention was for that to get picked up after the election of new officers next month, because I presented, I think in October, a mock-up of some items on our, oh wait, this is budget committee.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
we're-
bylaws.
Yeah, yeah, because, yeah, that was another thing, yeah.
Right,
All right.
so, but the intention was to pick up the bylaws discussion
Right.
with the new board in place.
Right,
Okay.
right, once reorganization happens, okay? All right, so that does wrap up the committee reports.
Service fee, and I got
That's all right.
yeah. So no accidents or incidents to report in the month, and, Joe Robbins' private hangar, that construction is finished, electrical, heating, gas, all installed, and I have not talked to him since it's been done, but I think he's satisfied with everything. Then the second page is our employment numbers for November, and you'll see a marked increase in November numbers versus the previous year, and actually versus all recent years. I'll talk a little bit more about that later in my report when I talk about Cape Air's performance, but they actually did a very good job in November, filling seats in what sometimes can be a slower, month. And then also on the performance, a minimal number of flight cancellations for the month, and also their on-time performance from a delay standpoint was also pretty good, at just 6% of their flights delayed. So, as you can see on the performance side, we're really at last 4 months have been very good. The 4 months before that were okay, and then, the period before that was where they were really having their pilot issues, and, things were not okay. Any questions on that?
Well, that's great numbers for
Yeah.
November.
Mhm.
So then I'm gonna go to the airfare report. So this is as of last Friday, looking at kind of, again, Manistee and our surrounding airport. And, you'll see the biggest change between this month and last month is that, fares in Traverse City have come down significantly. That line changed from 1 month ago. Fares here, on average, down $14, Traverse City down 108, Grand Rapids down 7, and Muskegon up 12. So 3 airports roughly same. Traverse City came down significantly. The month before, Traverse City also, a little bit different, but things the month before were much more balanced. So that means that right now, on average, it's about $50 more out of Manistee than Traverse City, and Traverse City is close to the average out of Grand Rapids. It's not common. This morning, I had my monthly call with Andrew Bonney of Cape Air, and we were talking about this, and the topic of conversation about what Allegiant is doing to the Traverse City market, and really a lack of response or understanding by the mainline carriers to adjust for that, because Traverse City is relatively a small market. Allegiant's actually able to pull quite a few people, and I think the legacy carriers are therefore now really over capacity, and their algorithm's like, oh, we're not selling enough seats, gotta lower the fares. So I think it's, and Andrew's comment was, he guarantees me that at American and United Corporate, they're not strategically thinking about how to react to Allegiant and Traverse City. That's just what the algorithms pump out as far as fare adjustments.
Yeah.
I think that maybe a little bit what we're seeing here is that, oh, we're getting the winter and things aren't selling the way we were thinking,
Mhm.
given the capacity we've got committed to the market, and thus things have dropped. When you throw in parking, 7 days of parking at the various airports, it, as it always does, balances things out and things become much more even across, our airports, and that's, still the case here. We take advantage of the fact that we don't charge for parking, but then we also don't have that revenue, which is the number one source of revenue at Traverse City and Grand Rapids for those airports. I report then, any questions on airfare? Okay, capital projects update. So these are our federally funded projects. Still haven't heard any updates on our MDOT approval of our airport layout plan. The last update I got was at my meeting with them in late October, and update is always, well, we're close. So, don't have any more information on that, but it's not holding us up right now. Earlier, it kind of was holding things up, but it's essentially kind of semi-approved because it's in their hands. They can start using it as the basis of approving future things. So, and they realize that it's on their side that it's not completed at this point. So, there is no holdup from it not being completed, but it is still outstanding. Then I wanted to talk about, so after our October meeting, I had my meeting with MDOT, then there was a follow-up based on kind of getting the feedback from that, working with our consultant, Mead and Hunt, kind of pull together our capital improvement plan, our ACIP, Airport Capital Improvement Plan, which is a document that gets submitted to MDOT and ultimately the FAA, that basically lays out our planned projects for the next 5 to 10 years. The most focus is on really years 1 through 3. We look at 4 and 5 a little bit, and then beyond that, they're generally not really looking at things, so our plan kind of also places those same priorities. These are now the projects that are on track for happening this fiscal year. Part of the email and the IFE that I needed to approve to keep these projects on track are tied into kind of some timelines that are being imposed by MDOT on these projects. So there's the RSA safety area grading. RSA is runway safety area. Its full name is RSA ROFA, runway object-free area. This is an item that was identified in our FAA airport inspection now 2 years ago, and has been waiting funding to basically perform the work. That should all be coming together this year. At least that's the indication from the FAA that this is scheduled to be funded this year. Tying in that grading, since we're going to be grading all of the area around our main runway, that is also a good time to do lighting projects. So we had a lighting project scheduled that is now aligning with this, so basically we'll be removing the old lighting, grading to level everything out, and then installing new lighting all at the same time, essentially. New beacon, our beacon, as you are aware, has been out of commission now more than it has been working over the last 18 months, and parts aren't really available anymore. They were looking at trying to get a custom crafted replacement bearing for the beacon, and right now we're just gonna move that project up and just get it replaced. T-hanger doors, that's the last project on refurbishing our old T-hangers. Then every 2 years, we do a remarking and crack sealing of our runways. One of the things that I handed out, and this is really kind of a bigger picture, but I put this together, I updated it so I could get some current information to Adam as part of his kind of coming up to speed. And this is what basically resulted from our meetings with MDOT, and FAA was partly in attendance. This, do you have this or not?
I'm looking for it.
Okay.
Right here.
That,
Big
okay,
hand.
I got it, okay.
Separate.
So this, the top half is where we have been tracking our locally funded projects.
Mhm.
That's all being taken care of through the ARPA funding. There's still some potentials out there, placeholders for future things. So ignore the top, because it's not really relevant at this time. But the bottom half are the projects we have in our capital improvement plan with MDOT and FAA. So the first 5 there, you see what I just went over. Actually, I think it's 7 because they break out design and construction as 2 separate projects. So those are the fiscal year 24 ones, and then there's fiscal year 25, 26, 27, 28, and then remainder, there's not much currently out there. Mentioning this because there are aspects of this that are significant. If you look at the final column, total project cost, right now, the estimate of all of these projects is over $13 million. And obviously, at $150,000 a year in our federal entitlements, we're not paying for that out of our own pocket. Certainly not paying for it with county funds. So the vast majority of this plan depends on FAA discretionary funds or other pots of FAA money. And last year, the version I did of this last year, there's a key down below that kind of talks about what some of those pots of money are, where currently we and our consultant and MDOT are planning for this money to come from. The biggest piece is discretionary, which is federal FAA dollars that are basically leftover dollars that don't get allocated per other allocation formulas. Then whatever is left over, the FAA allocates nationwide, basically on a priority basis based on the project's rated priority. And generally that ties into what its safety score is or importance. The runway safety area and lighting projects are targeted to be funded this year with those funds. And then 2 years from now, our main taxiway refurbishment and related projects around that, which is the bulk of that $13 million, is also targeted as discretionary funded. It is very rare that an airport gets discretionary funding that close to each other, but it's just kind of how things are aligning, and we anticipate that happening, but those projects could get pushed out a year, 2 years, or more if that funding does not come through, because that's approximately $10 million there for that runway, taxiway work. So then there is a local impact of all of this, because these grant dollars aren't free. There is a small but still appreciable local match when it comes to large numbers. And that kind of rolls into what this spreadsheet is calculating. And if all this were to happen in this timeline, it shows that we are short probably about $200,000 based on, you know, what we might need. But a lot of this could change over time. But again, it's something you should be aware of. It's what's currently before MDOT and the FAA is what our intention is to do. Questions? Okay.
2.5 match is what it is, or is it 5?
The match, from a federal perspective, it's 5%, but the state kicks in half of the match. So
So
it is
it's 2.5.
2.5. And that is because Manistee receives essential air service and is in an economically distressed county, defined by somebody. Otherwise, so most airports in the state, it is a 10% match, and the state does half of that. But because we receive EAS and our current county designation, we're in a lower match category.
And so we're going into fiscal year 24-25, and we're projecting.
We are going into 23-24. So October 1st
23-24.
through September 30th. So we're 2 months into our 23-24 fiscal year.
You're projecting the $24,000 shortfall.
Yes, but the timing of that, probably a lot of construction will likely happen late summer, because right now, with the design contract going up to MDOT or Aeronautics Commission approval in January, that officially starts design, although Mead and Hunt is already doing design just to make sure they meet timelines, but the contract funded until January. Looking to go out for construction bids May right now, which means construction will probably be late summer or fall, kind of bumping into end of construction season. If that construction schedule holds through, billing, we may end up spilling over into the following year. So yes, a shortfall, but the actual timing of it and what fiscal years it actually falls into may be different than my simplistic graph or chart here.
Anyone else? All right, did that answer your question, Adam?
Then we go to the county to make it up, or how does it get made up?
Susan writes a check.
Yeah.
Fund balance, if we have it, and we're getting slim on fund balance right now. Although I do have a $32,000 check for you on that grant person. But yes, I mean, at some point, board will
Yeah, have to make
need
it
to
ask.
start.
Yeah,
Go through Ways and Means
Planning
program,
through
and, yeah, it's not unusual, it's been done many times over the years. Look at $200,000 shortfall over a 5-year period, that's not a lot.
Great.
But again, it's the value, the bang you get for the buck, it's well worth it, investment.
yeah.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Cool. Anyone else?
Okay. And that's
Is
the
that-
projects, and then back to my report, now on Cape Air performance. So really, I want to commend Cape Air. We've now operated 30 days without a single canceled flight. It is actually very amazing. I talked about the numbers in November, and I just really wanted to kind of put that into perspective by pulling up our top 5 Novembers ever. And you'll see 2011 was Frontier, and yes, we know that Frontier was a magical year, but Cape Air's number is actually now within throwing distance of that Frontier number in this part of the year. Cape Air has enough capacity under their current contract, operating 4 flights a day essentially through November. Technically, the winter scheduled 3 days short of that, so there's a little bit less than a full 4 flights a day for the entire month. But that number is relatively close to what Now Frontier was doing, and it far eclipses any previous year. 2022, last year, in November, Cape Air canceled, back to that slide, but I think it was 30-some% of their flights. So even though they canceled a huge number of flights last year, they still did better in November than previous years, most previous years, or 7 of the previous 60-some years. So when Cape Air has pricing set accordingly, and they've discounted fares in November and December, partly as an experiment to test the market and see the reaction. I mentioned this a little bit last month. Partly also just to, fill seats. And so if they've got the fares, they've got the reliability, they've got the capacity, and I'll talk about capacity a little bit more on my next slide, they can enplane a good number of passengers. So the number for November is fairly close to what June was. July and August were higher, but July and August were operating the same schedule as November. So in July and August, roughly 1,500 passengers. That's really about the capacity that Cape Air can handle, given the schedule that they operate, is about a maximum of about 1,500 in a month. And as we look forward to the next cycle, some of those constraints that are preventing growth are things that I think we need to be thinking about trying to get adjusted in our next carrier contract. And then as we look at December, again, kind of a repeat note, we're halfway through the month, no canceled flights. But now in December, we only have half the number of flights as November. So even if every single seat was full for every single flight, we couldn't approach the numbers we did in November just because we're not flying that many seats. Mm-hmm. However, there are periods of, a week ago, there was 10 or 14 days in a row where every single flight coming in was sold out. And it is interesting, from an airline perspective, that's terrible, because you want to be pricing such that the last seat sells the day before that flight goes out, because you're getting a premium for it. And also, if seats are sold out weeks in advance, there are travel needs that people have that come up last minute. And if there's no availability, they cannot use our airport. Regardless of what the price is, they cannot use it because there's no seats available. So that is why airline pricing is kind of that staggered ramp up. As, you get closer in, it gets more expensive, because you're catering those last few seats to those that need to travel and are therefore able or willing to pay more for that convenience of being able to book last minute. You sell things out weeks in advance, you don't have that luxury. So in some ways, Cape Air's pricing right now is too low for that metric. But it does show that there's more demand than supply right now. So I want to mention that, and then my sub-bullet here is Cape Air, in conversations I had with them, they feel that about 75% load factor, which means 75% of seats that go out are filled. That is about the max they can do. Because with only 8 seats, if you've got only 1 seat left, like 2 people wanna travel, that's not enough seats, so they can't book.
Mhm.
So it starts limiting people, and 1 seat out of 8, that's 12.5%. So, and also just due to the directionality, some flights
Yeah.
are less desirable than others. So for example, our morning flight out of O'Hare, so we go down roughly 8 o'clock, and then come back, leaving there about 10. A 10 o'clock flight out of O'Hare really doesn't give you much time for connecting flights to come in. So basically, that flight is solely servicing the Chicago area population. Whereas our afternoon flight coming in, departing Chicago at 3, you basically got the whole catchment area of connecting flights to fill that flight. So our evening flight in is often significantly more full than our morning flight. If you average those things across a month, you get a kind of a max of about 75%. Right now, I'm projecting that in December, they're probably gonna do 81%. Because if you look at the next 2 weeks, very few days of flights that aren't sold out. Just a lot of demand.
What does that tell us for the next contract?
Yeah.
Seating capacity and how
Well,
many flights?
That's why last month we had talked about having a work session in January to really start talking through these issues and really nailing down what it is we want to ask prospective carriers.
Mhm.
Cape Air, because they operate 9-seat aircraft, has different constraints than someone that may be operating a larger aircraft. But, right now, to me, if you ask me personally, my opinion, we need our summer schedule to go through the end of December instead of end of November, because I certainly believe that we can do as well in December as we did in November. And I think that in July and August, we need more than what we have, because Cape Air's best is less than our previous carrier's summer best.
Mhm.
Now, January, February, March, that's a little bit different story, so.
Have you and Andrew talked about that at all, just in?
I gave him a heads up that we
Yeah.
were planning to be talking about those types of things, so.
Because, full flights, that tells us the market's there. Cindy's flying Cape Air in, February sometime, and, I think she snagged the last seat available, that day. And so that's what, a couple of months out,
Yeah.
in the middle of the low
Yeah.
season, and it was full, so, I don't know.
Any other questions on Air? Just a quick, as you've probably seen, Cape Air is, doing billboards. So generally, they're spending their money on traditional media, billboards, and they've got some radio partnerships that are ongoing through the holiday season. And our budget goes into digital media, so Facebook ads, Google search ads, so. And that is all I have for my report.
Anything on this that you want to talk about? Down at the very end of the
Oh.
report?
Sorry, I do have one. Okay, so, I stopped sharing, so EAS, so, again, this is kind of in prep for really getting more focused on that, coming up in January, but our contract renewal is October 1st. Working back, I was looking at the Federal Register, and right now DOT is putting out RFPs for, I think, contracts that start in July 1st, so like 1 quarter earlier than ours. So they follow through on that schedule. Within 3 months, we should be seeing, or DOT's RFP hit the streets for our next air service cycle. So January is a good time for us to really start prepping our thoughts around that. The latest I've heard out of Muskegon is that DOT is supposed to be releasing their RFP soon. Since that situation is muddied by the fact that they're essentially canceling or ending a contract early, I think that there's a possibility that could get caught up in bureaucratic, legal land for a while. In talking with Cape Air this morning, Cape Air would really like to see our contract and Muskegon's contract go out for bid at the same time. It gives them flexibility to, A, propose things that combine together may make sense, more of a range of options, which was also my thoughts a while ago, that I thought that would be nice. The indication is that DOT is moving Muskegon forward faster than that, but could end up being that that slows down for a variety of reasons. And then, I don't know when the board wanted to start planning a date for, work session, but probably at the organization meeting
Yeah.
in January. So, thank you for.
Yeah. All right, good deal. Any questions, anything else? I think we kind of took it as it came up.
Well, when it comes to the next carrier, if Cape Air bids and no one else bids, then can you ask for someone else? Can you request,
So.
find other carriers? 'Cause there's only really two ways to get more people in here, is what, more airplanes and flights or bigger airplanes,
Correct.
so.
So, to answer that, technically, no.
Right.
This is DOT's process.
They bid,
They
they
put
get,
out, they get bids, they rank bids, they award. We, however, we're one of the 5 weighted factors the community input into the process.
that's what I read, yeah.
So, we have a voice, but we don't have veto authority, we don't have
Decision-making.
say, we don't have decision-making authority. However, if you think if there's 5 factors and only one of them is community input, the community input generally weights very high.
Mhm.
And there have been cases where the community has said, none of the above, rebid it. And DOT has listened to that feedback. There are also cases where the community has said certain things, we want this one, and DOT has said, no. If you look at the total of all the criteria, that one is so out of whack from the others, it doesn't make sense. So, yes and no, but generally I'd say there's just a process component to that, how DOT does it.
Right.
But then usually also there becomes a political component to that, with political pressure coming externally onto DOT if the community is really unhappy with a certain situation, that tends to move DOT to align with the community's interest.
Give you an idea, previous bid, COVID was just rolling,
Right.
and I was pushing for Grand Rapids in the morning as a stop on the way to Chicago, and
Yeah.
on the way back from Chicago at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And we actually received that bid. Nobody knew what the future was going to be, because there were so many unknowns, and that was exactly the time when COVID was strong. And
Yeah.
we decided to opt to stay with the traditional route to O'Hare as opposed to, but they did give us a bid to satisfy that ask as well. But only one that did was Cape Air.
But they actually made that
They
proposal.
made that, yeah, they dotted their i's and crossed their t's to make that option happen.
Wow, I never knew that.
I'm still an advocate for another.
Last month we talked about Detroit. I mean, there are, and again, this is why I think a meeting where we're just solely talking about the topic and kind of brainstorming out,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things we can ask for, and I think, as you're pointing out, Cape Air has demonstrated they will provide that as an option. Whether or not
They fund it.
it's something that we can get through DOT is a different
Yeah.
part of the process.
I think other destinations, any airline would be interested in doing as much as they can. To a point, and.
Well, a factor in this is, as you start looking at more options, costs go up. Now, we're kind of right now in an environment where DOT writes a blank check, and this is what it costs, therefore they'll fund it. But if you actually look at how much that translates into in a per passenger basis, those numbers start looking ridiculous at some point. So there is some fiscal responsibility that we should be aware of, but right now, it doesn't impact us because there are two regulatory funding caps placed on EAS. One is an overall no more than $1,000 per passenger subsidy. We're well below that, and that cap applies to us.
Mhm.
There is also a $200 per passenger subsidy cap that applies if you are closer to a medium or large hub, and I think 185 miles, or maybe it's 200, there's some number of miles from a medium or large hub, and it's driving miles, so it's, you know, take the, about Chicago, you're taking around the lake into account. Right now, we are outside that, so that cap does not apply to us. If it did apply to us, our current subsidy would be above that $200 amount number. Grand Rapids, as it's growing, is getting closer each year to being a mid-size hub. We would be within that range if Grand Rapids were to achieve that. So, not something that impacts us now, but is something I think we need to think about as we plan, that we're not creating a subsidy that's not sustainable in the long term. And also, depending on the makeup of Washington and the winds of all of that, we don't want to be the airport that's on the front page of USA Today or whatever as the, you know.
Bridge to nowhere.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
and in my conversation with Cape Air this morning, they don't want to be the air carrier
Mhm.
in that situation either. So they are cognizant of making sure that things are
Right.
reasonable and comparable to what others are doing and, you know, on a subsidy others are receiving.
Anything else? All right, anything on the law enforcement?
So I'm gonna start off by saying, Jeff, I owe you an apology. I not completed my tasks again. My weakness is a procrastinator, and if it doesn't have a due date, I have a tendency of falling behind, and I apologize to you on that. I've given the sheriff a revised language after his feedback, and I'm waiting to hear back from him on the Leo coverage, letter of agreement. And on the insurance, just really going through where we left off when I kind of dropped it, back in late spring. And now that I've got a deadline, because our renewal is coming up next month, that is gonna get done, but I apologize, for that.
So the Leo coverage, that was, you sent that and you sent that to Brian at when? How long ago?
End of October, but I didn't follow up and say, did you get this or anything until late last week, so. I suspect it's just got overlooked in his inbox, and it just needs a ping. So, it's been a while, but it's more my fault than his, in my opinion.
Right, that takes us down, I believe, to new business. anything we need to bring up now? I think we've pretty much hit a number of things that are kind of hot topics. Brings us to comments by authority members. I'd like to say something here. Of course, welcome to the new member. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for this year. It was a steep learning curve for me, a lot of times, but I really appreciate, the county commission. I wish Karen was here so I could thank her as well, but thank you for kind of guiding me through some of the procedural things. You know, a public board like this is foreign to anything I'd ever done before, but just right down to, only having 3 people in a committee. Never would have thought about that. But I really appreciate all that. And, all the people coming to the, committee meetings and being so enthusiastic about coming to the meetings. I think that's been a real heartfelt thing. I mean, people, I can't make it this day, but here's several options. And then people would be there when they said they were gonna be there. That's just terrific. And it was just a really nice year. I enjoyed that. It was terrific to see so many of the board members here. I think almost all of us were here when we were interviewing the, Mead & Hunt and all the consultants. And, that was really kind of cool. I went home and told my wife, said, you know, it was just, that was kind of neat to be a part of that and to watch the whole thing unfold and then the little discussion afterwards. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. Appreciate it. And, yeah, I'm just here to try and keep the airport going. I'm just a lowly private pilot.
With an airplane factory?
Yeah, with a little airplane factory out there that everybody's invited to. My little airplane factory is open for tours anytime anybody wants to stop by.
Quite impressive,
Yeah, he's been there, so.
Actually, I think I'll ask the board, since our organizational meeting is coming up, traditionally, we've had no formal process of kind of providing a slate of candidates. We just kind of do it at the meeting and twist arms. Wanted to put in more thought. We could do something between now and then, but mention that that's coming up, and
Yeah.
that's really the order of the business at the next meeting.
Right. Okay, well, I just wanted to say thanks before everybody got out, and I just really appreciate it, y'all. I really enjoyed our conversation, when you were appointed, and, and thank you so much. Right down to making sure I sat in the right seat. One time I sat in the right seat. That's not where you sit.
I'm sure it's nice seat.
I love it. Okay, so that's all I had to say. Anyone else have anything to throw out there?
I'd have to say the same thing. It's been a very interesting and fun year, and,
Yeah.
it's no year for me, so.
Yeah. Right, well, if there's nothing else,
2 things. One,
yeah,
thank you for being the chair. I think you've done a very good job as chair, keeping things on task.
Absolutely.
The other thing, I will echo it now that you'll hear it from me in the future, when we start talking about EAS, that I would love to have you, have that discussion with, Andrew Bonney in regard to trying to get Delta to have that connectivity next level, like they have with American and United. I think that would be another tipping of the scales, that, because Michigan is a Delta state. It is, because it's Northwest. Northwest used to be a hub here.
yeah. So,
And they do have, carriers tend to be hub-specific with their agreements. So Cape Air does have a full agreement with Delta out of Boston. Boston's another Delta hub, and there's headquarter area. They haven't extended that anywhere else.
Well, there again, with what Cape Air has lost in the region,
Yep.
that might be a thing to help them refresh that perspective. And putting that question in front of them doesn't hurt to renew that thought process.
yeah. Now, we were able to, they have enough of an agreement where we were able to check our bags from this desk to Paris
Oh, yeah.
through the, partnership with Air France.
But the catch becomes is, for anybody flying business, if you're a Delta flyer,
Oh.
you want that connectivity of that ticket. So if something happens, you've got that coverage. So
Okay.
you don't have to buy the separate Cape Air ticket to get the, you know, and then
Yeah,
switch over, because, and that's why I flew one line for the 10 years when I was, my last 10 years of work. This doesn't make for good travel. if you
Okay.
don't.
all right, thanks for clearing that up in my mind, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that I've really enjoyed, being on this, and I've learned a lot. I mean, when I first came on here, I thought it was gonna be something simple and easy, and there's so much, to this, that, I'm just now getting the hang of it, so, and the understanding of a lot of the different facets that it involves. And, so I don't know if I'm gonna be back or not, so hopefully I am, but if not, either way, I've really enjoyed my time here, and I've really learned a lot. It's something that I didn't expect. Everybody's been great.
Thanks a lot.
I guess just wait for the county commissioner's appointments at their
Tomorrow.
meeting. So there are 3 seats expiring.
2 seats, well, yeah,
Well,
3 because
technically-
one's a commissioner,
Yeah,
but that's appointed from the board.
Yes, so Karen,
Yeah.
Cindy, and then yours, but, I think.
I think that'll happen quicker this time than last time.
Yes, and thank you, Mike, for pointing that out to me, because
Yeah.
I had no idea it was even up.
oh, no.
Yeah, so, I mean, I flew down there on the seat of my pants, and I filled it out right there in the office, because I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I could turn it in on Friday, because I was so backed up.
Sure.
I went down there late Thursday and just, I'm gonna sit right here and just fill it out, because I had no clue that my, time had expired.
That happens in boards all over.
I
Oh,
know that
yeah.
story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so had you
You
not
can
brought
ask
that to my
them.
attention, I wouldn't even have attempted to fill it out, so.
Well, I'm glad the message got through to you
Yes, I
in time and
did.
everything, so. All right, well, unless there's anything else, I would move that we adjourn. All in favor? Take off.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
See y'all later.